When I was here back in the early 70s, we didn't know it as the Tiki House. It was just Billy Hull's house.
I never heard it referred to as that. Everyone that I knew, it was simply Billy Hull's Playboy house. When you walked through that door and you walked inside, I don't care what you had heard about it, it was like, this is something I've never seen before. This was just completely off the chart as far as Chattanooga was concerned. 45 years ago, that place was amazing.
I started practicing law September 1, 1966 as an assistant district attorney in Ed Davis's office here in Hamilton County. I've been practicing ever since then in 51 years. It wasn't the only case I've handled where a wife or a husband was cheating on their spouse and it wound up either attempted murder to get somewhere solicitation to kill somebody.
Back in those days, it was your average garden variety crime, you know, shootings, robberies, thefts, prostitution busts, and that was pretty routine.
Billy liked playing big, and he built this house. As you walk in the door, the first thing you see is this swimming pool, and you could get in the pool and you could swim back down a kind of a canal to the 2 bedrooms. Billy was working as a bouncer at a place called the Go-Go Club, and when there was trouble in those places, there always is, when you combine women and alcohol and so forth, Billy was a fellow they called for over the loudspeaker, Billy Hull, Billy Hull. And he was like a bowling ball when he came rolling through the crowd. He handled a lot of the stuff for Paul Gray, and that's how I first met Billy Hull. He just wanted to be the biggest nightclub operator in Chattanooga.
You know, the old game, you tell this story and then the next guy repeats it and the next right, and by the time it gets around through about a half a dozen people, it's a completely different story, and that's the way I pretty well see the whole chain of events from back then.
They can't be lumped together. The old saying, you get in trouble with whiskey and women. I think in this one it was just the women aspect of it that went sour for him. It's the old double standard that it's all right for him to fool around, but he couldn't stand when his wife did. He had hired Larry Parker and a fellow by the name of Wayne Carter to kill a gentleman by the name of Rowan Hargis, who was having an affair with Billy's wife. The young man that was killed was coming out of another night spot over on North Shore called the Tiki Hut. And as he was coming out of that, he got shot from long range by Larry Parker, who was a SWAT member of the Chattanooga Police Department, or was an expert marksman.
This is Chattanooga. We never heard anything like that. A hitman. I mean, this guy, I'm sure there's been hitmen and crimes through many years before that, but I mean, it wasn't on the news. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't about someone that you knew as a local person. It was a shock.
I look back and I probably could have done a better job. He went to the state penitentiary. He saved the life of a guard. Evidently they were going to kill a guard up there. And he saved the guard's life, and so his sentence got commuted. The latest I heard, I never heard much from him, was that he had married some lady that was in the medical field. And he was in Key West, and then he had a heart attack and died. That's the last I knew of Billy when he passed on.
I think it's interesting that houses like that develop their own mythology. That's the mystique that comes with a house like that. It gets a life of its own.
By standards today and clubs and architectural designs and so forth, it wouldn't have been that impressive. But back then, it was impressive. That's the reason everybody wanted to see it. If you had the opportunity to go, you went. Just to say you'd been there, just to say you'd seen it. Today, it's a different world, it's a different culture. The nightclub wars back in those days of them burning clubs and finger pointing and accusations.
It's a shame. It's a shame. Vandals, the vagrants, the deteriorating wood and steel. It's part of your history. It's not necessarily the history of the area where it is. It's a part of people's history.
He was a showman who got caught in some competition with a fellow that used to be his employer and his friend. There was a certain amount of jealousy there at the end, and one of them kept trying to get bigger and better than the other. And I think that eventually led to the downfall of both of them.
I'm sure there's people walking up and down the streets of Chattanooga that's never heard of Billy Hull and never knew that the house existed. So, what kind of legacy is that? It came up fast and it went away fast.